Now let's talk about how I passed my test the second time. Remember that I took the test for private detective in September of 2011 and I failed the test. I don't remember what my score was, but I wasn't close. And I do remember how I attempted to prepare. I did not read the private detective book. I glanced at these chapter summaries and I took the practice questions in the back of the chapter summaries, some of those, and I felt that I knew enough about Illinois criminal law and civil law so that I did not have to study. And then after I failed, then I changed my study method and I used the method that I had employed when I prepped for my CPP through As Is. So this is how I prepared. I attended a study group for the CPP. I registered to take both the PCI and the CPP. I arranged to take both tests very close together. I took the PCI test on, I think it was July 5th of 2010, and then the next day I took the CPP test. I applied exam prep ideas used by folks who had passed their exam. And I learned about this in a study group that I had attended beforehand. I began my hardcore prep 3 months before my exam day. So that was the equivalent of 12 weeks that I spent preparing for my CPP and PCI exam. I linked my exam prep to a daily activity. Back then, I was prepping to run a marathon in the fall of 2010. And what I did was, whenever I would go running or work out, then I would be listening to my study material because I had created audio flashcards, which I'll tell you more about later. My main study methods included reading and recording book sections. I read and recorded and composed practice questions and answers. And I also created flashcards of the complicated laws and the JCAR rules, which is something I was unfamiliar with when I went into studying for the exam. I created more than 100 flashcards of all the areas that I felt that I was weak on based on how I did on the initial test. I created audio flashcards, which is basically, I took my 3x5 index cards and I just recorded them so that I could listen to myself reading the question and then reading the answer as I was working out or walking or whatever I was doing. As time passed, I focused more on my weak areas. Here's some additional things that I did. Every day I did something. As exam day was getting closer, I made sure I did something. Now, I averaged 3 hours a day. Some days I studied 4 hours. And not all at once, because at the time I had taken a job as a contractor with the state police. I was doing nursing home investigations. I was doing a lot of driving around in Chicago and in the suburbs going to nursing homes and doing investigations in nursing homes. So I had a lot of what we call windshield time that I could use with my headphones on and listening to my questions and answers. Number 12, I created my own questions and answers. I read, listened to my audio flashcards, wrote, and talked, and which helped my retention of the materials. And I have read this in several places that when you read something, do something, and say something, and hear something, the fact that you overlap these things bolsters and improves your retention. My total study time expended was about 3 hours a day times 90 days. So in about 3 months, that was the equivalent of about 270 hours. And As Is had recommended a study time of 250 hours in 6 months before taking their CPP exam. And on the right here is my results page after I passed, showing that I got a perfect score when I took the test in March of 2012.